He's a rookie, barely had time to pin the nameplate on his locker, and in 3 starts, he learned more about being a quarterback in the NFL than some veterans learn in 3 seasons. Sunday was the kind of game that writes its own lesson plan, a wild, messy, beautiful, and ultimately ruthless teaching moment. Shedeur Sanders didn't just flash potential. He also found out the hard way that the league will reward flashes and punish mistakes, sometimes on the very next snap. From the first whistle, you could feel the tone of a breakout day. Sanders moved with a looseness he hadn't shown in his first 2 starts. Decisive footwork, eyes that read beyond the first window, a willingness to pull and buy a sliver of time. The stat line made the highlight reels: 364 yards, 4 total touchdowns, the kind of production that makes fans stop muttering and start believing. He hit Jerry Jeudy for a 60-yard strike that felt like a movie moment. He threaded red zone throws that looked mature beyond his age. For long stretches, he carried a Browns offense that had been stumbling and sputtering. And yet, this wasn't a pristine, mistake-free clinic. It was messy in the best way. He carved out drives with improvisation and timing, then handed the game back with a single, brutal decision. You could chart the emotional arc of the evening on one play in the third quarter. A backward step, a desperation heave over the middle, and then the ball in Xavier Woods' hands. The pick didn't just cost yardage, it cost momentum, composure, and the kind of breathing room young quarterbacks crave. 2 plays later, the Titans cashed it in for a go-ahead touchdown. That's the NFL's cruel arithmetic. A single error compounds in ugly arithmetic ways. What makes this story complicated is the duality. On one axis, Sanders at his best was thrilling. He saw windows, he attacked them, and he carried a team late when it felt like the Browns might simply run out of answers. On the other axis, his completion rate, the 23 for 42 that reads behind the highlight clips, reminded you he's still young, still learning pocket geometry, still figuring out what to hold and what to let go. He threw with swagger and with a rookie's occasional impatience. Both things are true at the same time. The fourth quarter plays out like a short film. Down 2 scores and barely breathing, he became the comeback engine. He marched the offense down the field, hit Harold Fannin on a timing fade that played like an audition for clutch moments, and then, in a moment that felt like destiny, he dove across the goal line himself. The stadium roared back to life. That 7-yard scramble wasn't a designed run so much as proof. This kid wasn't to be buried quietly. He had answers. He had will. Then the endgame. 2-point conversion attempts, both wildly consequential. The Browns ran a trick play that had been practiced all week, the kind of thing coaches install because sometimes the element of surprise beats raw execution. First attempt, gadget, miscommunication, ball on the ground. Second attempt, another chance, another swing at the rim of destiny. And it failed again. That's where the lesson really lands. Games aren't won on single plays of artistry alone. They're won on execution in the smallest details. The quarterback can throw 364 yards and still leave without the W if the team as a whole can't close under pressure. There's another layer to the learning here that's not strictly technical. Shedeur's response after the game was as important as his throws during it. He didn't flinch when asked about being pulled for the 2-point try. He didn't scream for the ball or throw coaches under the bus. He spoke like someone who understands that leadership isn't performative rage. It's accountability, even when your heart says otherwise. That kind of maturity will earn him patience from teammates and trust from a locker room that needs cohesion after a bumpy loss. But make no mistake, the tape will show the interception. Coaches will circle it in red because that's what coaches do. They hunt for the mistake and then make a plan so it doesn't repeat. Film rooms are unforgiving classrooms. He'll watch it back and feel it. That's the point. Learning in the NFL is mostly humiliation followed by repetition. You throw a bad ball, you see how a defense capitalized, you adjust mechanics, reads, timing. If he's any good, this becomes a punctuation mark in a longer sentence, not the end of his story, but a necessary comma that teaches economy and caution. For the Browns, this game is both promise and problem. They've possibly discovered a quarterback with the arm, the moxie, and the toughness to take control of an offense that's been directionless. But they've also been handed a clear reminder that young QBs need structure. play calls that fit their processing speed, protection that gives them time to go through progressions, and a coaching staff willing to temper graft with discipline. The final stat sheet reads like hope, but the margin of error in the NFL is paper thin. A few small slips, a turnover here, a blocked punt there, and a promising season becomes a cautionary tale. And for Shedeur personally, the takeaway is specific and brutal. You can be brilliant and still learn the hardest lessons inside one Sunday. The interception is a tutor that doesn't grade on intention. The failed 2-point plays are teachers in disguise. You win the mental homework by returning to the practice field and making the micro adjustments that make big plays more repeatable and mistakes less common. He can survive this. In fact, he can thrive if he lets the sting focus him. There's also a narrative cost benefit for the franchise. Fans will scream for continuity, for more reps, for the bright kid who finally makes the offense interesting. That energy is intoxicating, but patience and process must anchor that energy. Otherwise, you risk amplifying the noise that can drown a young player. The front office faces a choice: accelerate development under pressure, or steady the approach and build around him with protection and scheme suited to his growth curve. When the final whistle blew and the scoreboard read a 2-point loss, the immediate feeling was disappointment. Visceral, communal, loud. But step back and the image softens. A rookie who led, a kid who made the big play himself, a player who looked like the answer more often than not. The heartbreak won't erase the progress. It will augment it, provided he and the team treat it as a lesson instead of a verdict. In the end, the NFL teaches a simple, demanding truth. Growth is a blood and ink process. You get better by getting hurt, by learning what breaks, and then fixing it so it won't break again. Shedeur Sanders walked into a classroom on Sunday, got graded harshly, and left with the sort of homework that, if done right, makes him not just a headline but a real, dependable player. If he studies, adjusts, and comes back meaner and smarter, this game will be remembered as the one that taught him how to win. If he shrugs and lets the sting fester into fear, it will be the one that taught everyone else how fragile a rookie's promise can be. The difference between those two paths is the work he does between now and the next snap. Question: when a rookie finally plays his best game, does the team celebrate the performance or the draft pick it just protected? Shedeur Sanders walked off Huntington Bank Stadium with numbers that would make any coach blink: 364 passing yards, 3 touchdown passes, and a rushing score. A bona fide breakout on paper. Trouble is, football isn't a highlight reel on loop. It's a ledger of tiny decisions that add up. The Browns lost 31-29. Tennessee snapped a 7-game skid, and one third-quarter mistake plus 2 failed 2-point attempts turned what should have been a career-defining afternoon into the kind of what-if week that keeps coaches awake. ESPN.com, here's the short version. Sanders looked like a different player in pockets and decision-making than we'd seen in his first 2 starts. He threaded a few gorgeous downfield throws. The 60-yard strike to Jerry Jeudy was one of the purest throws you'll see from a rookie this year, and he finished with the kind of yardage total that forces a front office to consider new timelines. But he also threw a back-breaking interception after drifting out of the pocket in the third quarter, a turnover that led directly to Tennessee retaking the lead. That swing, the micro moment where the scoreboard flips, is where young quarterbacks learn the true cost of gambles. ESPN.com, let's slow it down. The emotional arc of the game feels like a short film. First, the Browns fall behind early. Ugly special teams and a 65-yard Tony Pollard touchdown run put them on the ropes. Then, for about 40 electric minutes, Sanders orchestrates an offensive revival. He finds rhythm, hits deep shots, and the stadium starts to believe. The fourth quarter? Pure rookie poise. He engineers 2 late touchdown drives, including his own 7-yard scramble that felt like a script moment. You could almost hear the "this is the beginning" narratives forming in the press box. And then the 2-point tries. First one fails, so they go for it again. This time, Sanders is watching from the sideline while a gadget direct snap to Quinshon Judkins collapses into a fumble. That decision, sitting your hot young QB for a trick play on the tying conversion, is what will spark debates in Cleveland for days. ClevelandBrowns.com. Now, the accountability. Kevin Stefanski owned it. He admitted the call was his and that it did not go as we thought it would. That's as candid as you'll get in professional coaching speak, and it matters. Coaches get paid to make the hard calls. They also get paid when the calls work. When they don't, the magnitude is multiplied if the player you sidelined is the one who single-handedly brought you